Hello everyone, Yondan here from the Minecart. Today's video will be a slightly different form of content from the animations I'm used to. You see, I randomly got the idea to make a Picrew, and of course I immediately act on it. What is a Picrew, you might ask? Well, it's a Japanese character creation engine. Each Picrew is made by the community, and you can customize from skin tone, to eyes, to clothes, to background. Each Picrew is different, and it shows your character in many different art styles. People use them for profile pictures and the like. So I decided to make one. It was a lot of fun, but also quite boring and took a lot of work. It was worth it in the end though. My storage may not recover, and I was trying to cool down the amount of images I have too. I have to give massive props to Mer, who made this impressive Picrew tutorial which I was using a lot during the process. So thank you for that. I'll put the link to their tutorial and social media in the description. Go support them. Before the video begins, I just want to remind you all to like and subscribe. Do all the basic YouTube stuff. You know what to do by now. Let's jump in. So, first up was the plan. I had a few ideas and I drew them traditionally, then moved digital to create a sketch. I was using Autodesk Sketchbook, if you were wondering, though this is likely easier with other apps and such. The canvas was 600 x 600, which was shockingly small. Before I sketched, however, I drew a photo of myself, or well, my Sona in the ideal pose I'd use. Since I drew this character so much, it would be a fast and quick process, and also mean I'd be able to get positioning correct when I actually drew the thing. And the sketch, and all that. Then, to sketch. I traced this pose to get the ideal basic script to use. I drew the body in one colour, and then each different segment, such as eyes, mouth, hair, etc., in different colours and such. This was so it was easier to differentiate each little part. And then when I eventually used this for the sketch, it would be much easier for me. I know it looks goofy, don't come for me. Then I drew out 2 different body types. They were fairly similar, I didn't want to change the pose. Then I added 7 skin tones. Oh look, there's the mighty flesh cloud. As you can see, I fiddle around skin tones a bit more. I ended up adding 5 extras later on, but you won't see the speed paint for that until later. Luckily, my bases were the same for the 2 colours, so I didn't have to colour more than one kind of shading thing. Next, it was move on to the eyes. The eyes were a pain, to say the least. I had 5 different eye expressions, and then I separated the eyes for the sake of more options. Different expressions, and then 10 different colours? That's about 100 images for one body part. The way I made these were all the same. Rather than hiding the layers, I just kept the layers there so I could see where the bottom and top of the eyes were. Then I coloured the back in. For the sake of my sanity, I didn't shade, rather just colouring in. I didn't use the fill, because Autodesk fill functions also screw the hell up. I used the same process of colour layers that I used with, well, my skin. Which, for that matter, I should probably explain how I coloured in. What I did was I'd have my line art on one layer, then I'd have my colours on a different layer. That way, I could have my colour swatches at the side, colour pick using the eyedropper or whatever, and then have some form of way of just colouring in each eye without having to, well, continually draw something over and over again, rather than just going over it with a pen. Every time I made a new colour, I would save the image. I think this probably sped up my saving process, and it also meant I have some really nice rainbows in my images now, which is fun. You can see me doing this process here. I also added all these different colours with black sclerids, however it turned out that you could only have 18 colour swatches, and I had already got I don't know, more than 18, so I only ended up using 5 of these different colours. White, red, yellow, light blue, and pink specifically. Off screen, I created items such as highlights and eye pupils for the sake of variety. As well as this, I also created facial accessories, which I did also forget to record, but let's not talk about that. I created things such as freckles, scars, beards, etc., things I never noted in Picrews. As well as this, I ended up going to the Humbler Discord, a Discord server I'm very active in, for some help, because I felt like I needed to add more options even though I didn't. Some friends suggested that I include vitiligo and acne into the mix, so of course I did, because that is something that, again, you don't often see in Picrews. So that's what I added in here. As you can see, I'm using a mix of eyes and one of the skin tones here as a base, so then I know where I'm supposed to put my things. Here I was getting rid of some nasty outlines that had come from selecting in Autodesk. That's just what it be do. I checked how it looked on certain different other skin tones as well. Then I added some extra colours to beards and all that, and that was really my facial accessories done. About time I actually start adding things into the Picrew. I forgot to record adding in the skin tones and the eyes, so here you see me adding in all my facial accessories. One thing that PC users can do is add in a ton of files together. Mobile users can't do that. I had to painstakingly add every single damn thing into the Picrew all at once, and they took about 3 seconds each. It was a pain. Another thing is that, well, everything is in Japanese. I hear there's like an English translation for it, but I don't get that option on mobile. So I aggressively kept going back to that tutorial that I was mentioning earlier to see where some things were. Yeah, I give a lot of credit to that. There was also layering issues, because when you add something it immediately appears above everything else, and that's kind of not how some of these things work. So I had to change the layers, which wasn't too hard a process. Then I had to add adjustments, because sometimes they just aren't in the same place that you want them to be. I fiddled around with adjustments a bit, but I ended up liking the default settings, so I stuck with them, I guess. And here you can see me just testing out what I had done so far. It was quite fun to actually fiddle around with, especially with all these new parts. Next came the part I was dreading for the entire goddamn Picrew creating process. I enjoyed making things like the facial accessories and the clothes. I did not enjoy making the hair. The hair is usually what you see next, so of course I moved on to it next, but oh god was I going to be in so much pain. I hated the whole process. So my first instinct was to move on to something that I could kind of draft a little. So I started by going traditional. Here you see me fiddling around with the pen, moving around the camera, and drawing a bunch of heads. Then I took a different colour pencil and started drawing out different types of fringes and front hairs. Then I went and grabbed a different colour pencil and started drawing bangs, which you see in almost all my drawing art styles, you know, those things. Final thing was back hair, which I had long hair, short hair, and some other stuff envisioned. So it was time to go digital. Again, I took a sketch and also the original, and I got a ton of colours that I planned to use. Oh boy. And you can see that I actually forgot to do line art here, so instead what I did was I just kind of showed my colouring process of each one. Since it wasn't as simple to colour in like the eyes and all that, I had to colour in each individual like kind of hair part. That's what I did, I guess. Coloured in each individual hair part. I used brown just so it would be easier for me to see, but I actually started with black whenever I took the colours. Here's the same process again. It's very tedious, I don't want to show all of these parts. Another thing I will say is that I forgot to add the colour in of white hair, so I added that in as well, but that was after I'd done everything. Next, I moved on to the bangs and these kind of like side things. I called them bangs in the file, but I don't know if they'd actually count as bangs or not. So yeah, I kind of associated them with hairstyles, which might have ruined the Picrew later, but we'll see. It was still a lot of fun to work with, and I had a lot of fun making it. I cannot tell if that was supposed to be a lie or the truth, but either way, just go with it. Then I went in and added all the different colours into the Picrew, which, you know, you have to make the whole palette thing that appears here. Yeah, that palette thing. Yeah, I was making that. It was kind of funny, especially since I used the presets. I used the presets to kind of make my life easier when I was kind of pasting this, but for some of them I had to change the colours slightly because they just didn't look right. So yeah, that's kind of what happened there. And I had to add in the hair, the bangs, yada yada, you get the gist. This was the most tedious process of the whole thing. I wouldn't even compare adding the clothes to this. It sucked. Especially since I had to scroll so far down with each image, it was just such a pain. I rate it 0 stars out of 10. Then I moved on to the back hair, which I forgot to record again, so here's just the saving process over and over again. I apologise. Same deal with the ponytails, unfortunately. Instead, you get the recording of me colouring in my little parts. I created different colour schemes that are around the same colours. Black, white, red, blue, and yellow. They were all kind of the same colour, but also very different, so this just kind of made it easier, I guess. I used Copic colours for a few of these points, just because they looked nicer. Autodesk has that option, and it's so good. So yeah, these were head accessories. Clips, horns, goggles, which I never see in a goddamn Picrew ever. Glasses, that kind of thing. Those were the kind of things I would add into this portion of the Picrew, and it was quite nice, actually. I enjoyed making it. So I started adding them into the Picrew, which was not as nice as making them, but was less tedious than making the hair, thank God. Instead, you just get this compilation of just me adding them in. It was less items and, you see, I was starting to get bored when making these, so instead I started listening to YouTube videos during this process, and specifically Reddit reading videos, because they're just a great way of passing the time. However, I forgot that my mic, the video, picks up the audio when I was recording, so you can just hear Kalbus in the back of this, and it's great.
So then you just hear off in the distance just a soft
Yeah, whoops-a-daisies. Oh well, it's muted for the majority of this recording. It's no matter. Anyways, next up was to make the clothes, which are kind of vital in a Picrew if it's a human, so I didn't want to just miss them out. I did need ideas though, and fast. I already knew I had one base idea, which was the idea that sleeves would be something customizable. So rather than each item of clothing have different types of sleeves already built in, you could choose your own sleeve types. This would require more colouring for the sleeves, but would also be an interesting addition that I'd never seen in Picrews before, so I decided to go with it. However, I didn't have many ideas on what to do other than a few shirts and sleeve types, so it was back to the drawing board. Here you can see me traditionally drawing body types, things in different colours. I needed a few ideas, I didn't have too many. I ended up going into another Picrew and remembering that turtlenecks exist to actually add one in. But yeah, you can see me adding things in different colours, doing different body types, etc, etc. It was pretty simple. Then I moved on to digitally. I ended up omitting one of the ideas that I came up here, which was like a kind of sleeveless thing, so like no sleeves. It ended up looking like someone wearing a towel, and I wasn't really comfortable with that, so I just kind of left it. And I never actually coloured that one in. Another thing I did was I omitted sleeves. I made sure sleeves weren't actually in the actual thing, because that way it would look better with the actual thing. The sleeves I was going to add on future. Then I added in the boots, the second body type, just to kind of show that there were two different body types. Then I started drawing in jackets. I drew them in different colours just to kind of make it easier. I had a sleeveless jacket, kind of straps. I had a hoodie, which would just kind of go over it. I had just a normal jacket, and I also had one of a fluffy thing, but I ended up getting rid of it, and you can see me here forgetting to get rid of sleeves. And that was a cardigan. I also made like one with a very fluffy hoodie, but I never actually made that one a thing. Then I came up with this little poncho looking thing. I don't really know what that is. Then I added in the boobs, etc, etc. The only reason why I did this in red was just to kind of differentiate its colour from other things. Yeah, that's it. Here you can see me adding the sleeves in green. I created pattern sleeves. I also didn't go with the end sleeveless sleeves, I just decided they didn't look nice. And then I made like 6 different colours for the actual tops, and then I was gonna colour in the rest. Well, the jackets were gonna be in a dark colour, and the kind of undershirts would be in a light colour, just for sake of contrast. I know that's not how every character looks. Hell, even my character has a dark top and a dark overshirt, but, Either way, it wasn't too difficult to colour, but sometimes a bit annoying. I ended up having to go over a few of these over and over again because it just kind of had these little lines at the bottom. And then that's just this flashing saving again. I also made sure I actually went over to the sleeves area so it wouldn't really screw over. Then I went in and added in all the clothing types. Again, tedious process, has to be done. Otherwise it's not Picrew, it's just a ton of random assets. So here we are. Here's the saving process of the sleeves. Again, long and tedious, but again, it has to be done. This was likely the longest part, and this was likely the longest bit of footage I recorded at 8 minutes long. It was just me adding sleeves in for a straight 8 minutes because I started from almost the very beginning. Yeah. For your information, I am obviously not putting the whole 8 minutes in here. I'm only putting like an eighth of it in, probably less than that, so yeah. Then it was time to add in like kind of body accessories, so collars, necklaces, scarves, etc, etc. Ties. You can see me using the sketch a bit more here. I also added in some back accessories, which wasn't originally intended, but I decided that people might want them, so I decided to add them in. I think I went with 4 colours for the back accessories, and I went with 5 colours for the body accessories. There was like a flower crown, well, necklace, wings for the back, there were tentacles for the back as well, there were ties, etc, etc. It was a lot of fun making these parts. I was actually looking forward to making this. But yeah, I knew I was reaching the end at this point as well, but, you know, that's just how it be do. I keep repeating stuff in these recordings for some reason, I apologise for that. Also, can you tell that I'm picking up Kalbus quotes and things that Lumo Blaze says? I watched too much Kalbus during this process, and now I'm picking up the kind of vocal things. I also added in pronouns and stuff, because everyone is valid in this household. Back to adding everything in. Ugh. You can hear a really sped up Kalbus in the back of this, and it's great, but also really cursed. I'm not going to play it for the sake of your ears, but yeah. Again, as I said, this was a tedious process. Somehow at this point I had already gotten to the background. I made a ton of like nice looking pastel colours and I put them in the back, and I made a ton of like kind of background accessories. I didn't end up going with these speech bubbles, but I did make kind of little borders and little things in black and white for those that wanted to use them. Added those in. Again, ugh. I also gathered a bunch of pride flags because I decided this would be some sort of profile picture thing, so I decided that pride flags would fit. I gathered the ones you'd usually see. I think I did miss one, but yeah. Put all the pride flags into Autodesk and then began saving those. Then I put all of those into the background file. Again, long, tedious process, you get the gist already. So then I got to move on to the signature, which would not be removable because I want credit, thank you. But yeah. I actually wanted to Ibis Paint to make this, and that's because Autodesk doesn't have as much variety of fonts as Ibis. So instead I went to Ibis, saved that, yeah. I also had to add in all those little thumbnails you see on the little sides. Yeah, I had to make those. Those were also made in Ibis because Autodesk, you can only get canvases up down to the size of 500 x 500, and this needed to be 96 x 96. Ibis can get shockingly small, so hence I went with that to make these little icons. It was really difficult though. I don't like Ibis at all. Yeah, here I ended up coming back to the Picrew and adding in some backgrounds because I felt like they just didn't fit the Picrew without them. I just felt like I needed to add them in. I kind of skipped them out because I was lazy, but, you know, adding them in kind of added that extra image. I ended up having to change what I was doing for orange though because apparently it was too big for Picrew, but, you know, it's fairly similar. Oh, and this one I just stole an image. But yeah, that was basically what I was doing here, adding scenery to the background options. Finally, I had to make a thumbnail, so I grabbed my assets and added them in. The reason why I didn't make it in the actual Picrew Creator preview thing is because it kind of covered up a little bit in the corner. I went into Ibis, grabbed that Minecraft font, and yeah, that was the thumbnail done. Henceforth, the Picrew is actually done at this point to an extent. Therefore, I actually went in and I started fiddling around with it, seeing what I needed to change. You can see a few things that look different. That's because I knew from previous testing they didn't look great. Either way, after adding in a few things, adjusting, etc, etc, I could come up with something I feasibly liked. and you know, that's how I knew that this Picrew was pretty much done. Yeah, I was pretty happy with the way this turned out, and I got to create a ton of characters. Well, not really, but I had a lot of fun testing, and I also just genuinely had a lot of fun. This is a character of mine, by the way. You might recognize him. If you do, silence. So, that was the Picrew done. It took me about 3 to 4 days. I feel like it took me longer to make the actual video, which says something about my motivation to make videos at the moment. Either way, I finally finished this Picrew. It was a lot of fun to make, and I really hope you enjoyed my video documenting my process of making it. Even if I didn't really teach you anything, I really hope that I at least brought you into the idea of making Picrews, and maybe you could use mine. I'll put my link down in the description. I'll also put the links to other assets I used, including the tutorial and the Picrew I showcased at the beginning. It's definitely worth a check out supporting all these amazing artists, but make sure you adhere to the rules, don't post commercially, give credit, etc, etc. It really pains me to see art thieves these days. So, yeah, that's the whole Picrew video done. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, and if you're new around here, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to receive notifications whenever I upload. I normally upload animations, animatics, and the like. That's all from me, folks. Goodbye!